Okay, so this one got triple requested to me. It's called Strolling Episode 7. I'm going to skip over the last half of the video because he speaks about issues that I'm not interested in addressing at the moment. I wanted to address mainly where he discusses feminism, gender, privilege, and all that warm fuzzy stuff. I apologize if you don't like background music, but it is throughout his video, so you're just going to have to suck it up here. Anyway, this guy's about to drop some knowledge on you, so DJ, drop the beat.
Would I class myself a feminist? Absolutely, I would. 100%. I know there's like a stigma about it.
Yes, there is. There is a stigma about the term feminism. And the reason that this stigma exists is because, in general, the people who represent your, whatever, movement say horrifically sexist things. Normally it's about men, but sometimes it's even about women. An example of that would be, if we don't live in a rape culture, then why are women afraid to walk to their cars at night? Now, this assumes a multitude of things. First off, it assumes that all women are afraid to walk to their cars at night. Secondly, it assumes that of the women who are afraid to walk to their cars at night, they are afraid of being raped and have that in their minds as one of, if not the main contributor to their fear. Maybe those women are afraid to be mugged. And thirdly, it is assuming that is a rational fear due to the number of rapes that actually occur. The sexist thing about this statement is the fact that those people who say this are claiming that all women have these exact feelings, fears, worries, and experiences, when in reality, they don't. However, when this argument is levied, and I provide the argument I just provided, I'm pointed in the direction of a number of women who claim that they are afraid to walk to their cars at night for fear of being raped, or to a number of cases of rape. And I am told how insensitive I am to their plight. With that, I then direct them to a different set of women who have not been raped and are not afraid to walk to their cars at night. But this is dismissed with the mantra, well, just because you found some individual cases doesn't negate the general rule, and then everyone's heads explode due to the irony. So, anyway, where was I? Yeah, that's why feminism has a stigma. A lot of feminists are dishonest and sexist. Moving on.
Just because it's called feminism and not meninism or whatever.
So you think that the stigma exists because it's called feminism and not meninism. Sir, I guarantee you that if anything were to be called meninism, trying to pass itself off as something serious in either of our societies, it would be mocked into the fucking ground. There is something that isn't meninism called the men's rights movement, and people called men's rights advocates, and how do they seem to be getting treated as of late? Oh yeah, mocked like crazy. Anyway, if you simply change the label from feminism to meninism, I can say with 99.9% certainty that it would lose whatever credibility it had left. And if your movement was still pushing forward with the same talking points as they are right now, I'd be arguing against them just as strongly. Would you have an issue changing your label to meninist, but still arguing all of the same points as you would if you were a feminist, if every other feminist did the same? If not, why not? Is it just because it isn't called feminism or whatever?
We say stuff like mankind, and we think that's harmless.
I wouldn't have even needed to have any prior knowledge of these subjects to realize the fact that you are already being internally inconsistent in one particular direction. I'm around 25 seconds into your video, a lot of which didn't even feature you talking, and you've already smashed your head through the mirror you were looking into. Originally, you claimed that there is a stigma in regards to the term feminism. I detailed one reason why that stigma exists, and yes, it is also true that the stigma exists because it is a movement that claims to be about equality of the sexes, but its name features that of only one sex. Now you're sitting there, jump-cutting around, telling me that saying mankind instead of humankind or whatever is harmful. If I wanted to be ridiculous like yourself, I could say, wow, the stigma against the word mankind is probably because it isn't called womankind or whatever, but I recognize that you would probably like something more equal. However, the word man has two common definitions and colloquial usages. One is referring to a male. One example, that man just sold me some food. One is referring to the human species. For example, when viewing some historical documentary program and they say, the dawn of man, they're referring to all humans. Now, I have no problem saying the dawn of the human species instead. I'm willing to make that concession. Now, can you please stop calling your movement feminism and change it to something more equal? Oh, wait, no, because women generally face inequality and not men, and that's why it's called feminism. Look, If you are concerned with rendering all language, or at least this particular use of language, gender neutral, then one would think you wouldn't mind extending it to what you call yourself.
Anything that's to do with a woman, generally speaking, we have a habit of hating it.
No, we don't. You made an awfully broad statement here. Anything that has to do with a woman, we have a habit of hating it. Mothers are women. Another example, the Mona Lisa is a painting of a woman. You don't see many people saying, oh boy, I'm going to get to see the actual Mona Lisa today. They get all excited, they get to the Louvre, and then they see it and say, oh my fucking goodness, you've got to be kidding me. This is a picture of a woman? I can't believe I got my hopes up for this bullshit. I demand a refund. I didn't realize some of these paintings would have to do with women. Ugh. There are many examples of this. Books written by women or about women. Music created by a woman. Music created about a woman. Any type of art by or depicting a woman, for that matter. You are completely off your rocker, dude. Maybe you have a habit of hating anything that has to do with a woman, but I assure you that the majority of society does not. A wedge of society doesn't like your brand of feminism because it is a massive bullshit factory, not because it has to do with women. I mean, sure, there are probably a few people out there who don't like feminism because they genuinely hate women, but that subset is minuscule to the point of being ignorable, and I mock them just as hard as I mock you. The difference being, you are taken seriously by people, and they aren't. I don't think either of you should be taken seriously, but you like to conflate people who oppose feminism with people who hate women, when you simply cannot do that. Internalized misogyny is one of the piss-poor ways people in your movement have attempted to reconcile that logical clusterfuck by calling women who oppose feminism self-hating. It's garbage. It's desperate flailing is all it is.
Do I think men are defensive because they don't want to forego any of their privilege? Yeah. And they don't know they got privilege.
Do I think black people are defensive because they don't want to forego any of their privilege? Yeah. And they don't know they have privilege. Don't try to say that you don't have privilege as a black person, sir. People with privilege are blind to their privilege. Wow, this is easier than I thought. I can just apply this anywhere.
The things you can do that women can't.
Like get drafted? I know, I'm feeling the privilege.
And you don't want to accept that the only reason you can do that so freely is because you're a man.
The reason I can get drafted so freely is because I'm a man? Yeah, you know what? You're right. I will accept my privilege of being able to be conscripted into war and being killed while women are oppressed to their homes. See, you seem to be unable to see anything as an inequality faced by men. Men need to sign up for the draft. Women do not. Yet instead of using your head and saying, oh shit, why are men forced to go fight a war while the women aren't given the same obligation as citizens? Instead of this, you say, well, this is all a matter of women being seen as lesser and incapable of fighting a war, so the men have the privilege to go fight, while the women are forced to stay home. Any inequality that men and women face, women get the worst of it, no matter what.
You think you're an individual?
I do, actually. Are you going to tell me that I'm not?
You think that you're just good at something, confident, brave, strong, smart. No, it's because you're a man. And the world we live in favors men.
I'm sorry. What?
You think that you're just good at something, confident, brave, strong, smart. No, it's because you're a man. No, it's because you're a man. No, it's because you're a man. No, it's because you're a man.
That is one of the most sexist things I've ever heard. You recognize what this means, right? You just told every single man watching this video that they aren't actually smart, strong, brave, confident, good at something, or any of these positive traits due to their own hard work and merits. It's just because they're men and our society favors men. I've given you an example of our society favoring women. I'd like an example from you of our society favoring men. I assume that you're not going to give one. So let's examine what you said in greater detail. It is not possible for a man to actually be any of those positive things by themselves, simply by being those things, earning those things. Society made them those things. There is no possible way they may be studied a lot and worked hard to attain knowledge as a human. There's no possible way that they're courageous in the face of danger because they value the lives of those around them and are willing to put themselves at risk for the sake of others as a human. There's no possible way that they're strong in the physical sense or emotional sense because they, work out or just naturally have those coping mechanisms as a human. No, it is because they are a man, and our society favors men. I have one question for you. Where are the women in this scenario? Yes, I have the ability to notice when you conveniently ignore women as well as when you conveniently ignore men. I'm going to hazard a guess and say that when women are smart, strong, and brave, confident, or good at something, they've earned it and deserve to be revered for those traits. But society doesn't encourage them to be like that. But as we've already seen, men are that way for simply being born into this society, so why acknowledge anything positive a man does? That's just expected. You've successfully crafted a statement that's sexist against women and sexist against men all at the same time. I didn't think it was possible, but you've got the talent to pull it off. That's depressing.
One of the reasons why men are so defensive about feminism is because to truly understand feminism, you have to truly understand yourself. And when a modern day patriarchal man is faced with himself, it's really not a nice sight to see. And I can say that from experience.
So men who are defensive about feminism are all patriarchal now? Well, that's not surprising. The outgroup always has to be evil in some sense, right? I'll have you know that there are men and women who are defensive about feminism. And the women who are defensive about feminism are accused of hating themselves or just not understanding what feminism is. I absolutely despise this idea of being accused of being defensive when you're simply opposing someone else's argument. But listen to what he said earlier. In order to truly understand feminism, you have to truly understand yourself. You don't understand yourself, sir. You are a sexist and you present yourself like you are the opposite of that. So you are Exhibit A in a long list of evidence that you do not have to understand yourself to understand feminism. These are all just platitudes. This is an inescapable accusation you levy because a denial of guilt is further evidence of guilt. If you deny that you are a sexist, I don't need to use that denial as evidence because I already have your statements previously in this video that you didn't say ironically. So I can at least prove that you said a few sexist things. But if you accuse a man of being patriarchal, and they say, what the hell are you talking about? No, I'm not. I treat women equally. You can turn around and say, see, he's getting defensive because he doesn't want to forego any of his privilege. You aren't a mind reader, and neither am I. I can prove that you said sexist things, but you cannot, simply through denial of the accusation, prove that I, or any other man, actually view women in a poor light. Unless you jump through a bunch of ridiculous illogical hoops.
It was shocking to see that that's what I was like and that's what I would do, not realising the reasons why I was doing it. But it was also a really liberating feeling like, now I can see it, I don't have to be like that anymore.
Yes, we understand that you're using feminism to atone for your previous sins, my son. You used to be a shitbag to women and now you aren't. Well, not every man has that problem. This is all on you.
This thing that I'd feel in my whole life was articulated and I was thinking, oh, that's why I always feel a little bit less whole.
Whoa, okay. This really does sound like a personal issue that you're using feminism to fix. I swear to you that it will not get fixed. I highly suggest that you see a therapist of some type if you've been feeling not whole your whole life. Feminism fills that hole in your chest like religion fills that hole. You will do backflips to defend an ideology because now, without that ideology, you don't feel human. You don't feel complete. This is dangerous and you need to take many monumental steps away from this.
Growing up, like, the pressure of the things that you thought you had to do, like, it didn't feel natural. Deep inside, it's like, why does that feel weird? But everything else is telling you that's exactly what you need to do as a man.
Not everyone grows up like that. Okay, here comes the rant. Even if an ideology seems to explain why you feel a certain way, you don't need to be wedded to that ideology for the rest of your life, or even at all. Even if this particular ideology is correct about your state of being, you can simply take the explanation, say thank you, and be on your merry way. The reasons that dogmatic ideologies are so dangerous are precisely because they prey on people like you. They prey on people who have problems of their own that the specific ideology can fix. Are you feeling depressed? Well, that's simply because you haven't found God and accepted Jesus Christ as your personal savior. Are you feeling upset? Well, that's just because your thetan levels are off and you need our assistance. Feeling blue recently? Well, that's because the patriarchy rigidly enforces gender roles that you must live by. But if you join our ideology, we can get those nasty attitudes out of you and you can finally be a complete human. This is dangerous thinking. This is catastrophic thinking. This is the exploitation of people who need genuine help in order to increase their number. The people within the ideology probably actually think that they're helping too, but they aren't, because now the ideology is a part of the person. They don't actually fix anything, they just tell you that you're getting closer and closer to being fixed, but since you're fundamentally flawed, you will always need them. And anyone who argues against a specific point that is put forward, especially if it is a point that has played a part in convincing someone that they're better now, they will go to DEFCON 1 immediately. Tell a fundamentalist Christian that you don't think heaven exists. Well, that means that their son who passed away isn't up there waiting for them. Tell a Scientologist that thetans are a load of bullshit. Well, then they just wasted a shitload of money on essentially nothing. Tell a feminist that we don't live in a patriarchy. Then that means that they weren't convinced to be a bad person. They just were a bad person. Or that they weren't unsuccessful because of their own personal failings. It was oppression that was keeping them from their goals this whole time. And as soon as we dismantle that, you can be who you always wanted to be. Don't fall into this trap. You can turn over a new leaf by yourself. You can be happy without these things. You can reform your behavior by accepting responsibility for it and changing yourself. You always had the ability to change yourself. By yourself or with the help of others who don't try to fill your head and your heart with the equivalent of liquid garbage. But what do I know? That's probably just the patriarchy talking.
It is a bit scary because as a young man, I was faced with the words like sexism, and I was given a definition, hating women.
Well, then you were given a shitty definition. I'm not going to allow you to co-opt language. I'm going to try my best to stop you from doing this. Let's look at the word sexism. There are two components to this word, sex and ism. Sex is referring to the biological sex of a human being, male and female. And yes, I know intersex people exist, shut up. And ism, which is referring to a practice, system, or philosophy. So if you use these words and distinctly use them to mean one sex while excluding the other, saying that sexism is hating women is an example of this, then what you are saying in regards to this word is that men are not considered a sex. Same thing with racism. You would need to consider white people not a race if you claim that you cannot be racist towards them. But I've already looked in a few dictionaries about the definition of sexism, and already they mention specifically, especially women and girls and horseshit like that. Thanks for newspeaking, dude. Much appreciated.
Not giving someone a job because they're a woman. I'm thinking I'd never do that, so therefore I'm an angel. That's dangerous.
It's also dangerous to think that the only way to become a good person is through an ism.
You can hate a woman in so many other ways without saying I hate you.
You mean like saying that they're nearly paralyzed with a fear of men walking to their cars? That's also a statement that follows the standard feminist mindset. Women are weak and men are evil.
I think patriarchy does split your soul into little bits. I'm sure everyone knows the feeling when they have to work a 9 to 5. Whether they can articulate it or not, they know they're serving a system that doesn't benefit them and ultimately is taken away from them. They have to put that part of their heart away in order to complete their shift, and patriarchy's like that, but just obviously a million times worse.
I know. The patriarchy never pays me a cent.
Which is why men can't cry.
Men can cry, sir. I can cry. I just prefer not to make a big spectacle about it. But sometimes it just forces itself out, like at funerals and events like that. I've seen men cry. I've seen men who give off that stoic vibe break down completely. Do not try to tell me that men can't cry. Men do cry because they're human. Crying forces itself on them. They can't help but to cry in those instances because they aren't sociopaths.
I'm one of the men who's trying to get back to the gift of crying. When you split your soul so much, there's some things that you can't do as a human anymore, and part of that is crying. You can't connect with people anymore because you're this machine where it's sex and money, that's what I'm alive for, and nothing else matters. And everything else is to get one of the other two.
I have nothing. I genuinely think I'm nearly speechless. Let me guess. Feminism saved you from this, didn't it?
Crying has such a stigma about it, but that's all bollocks to me. Like, if you cry, you're strong and you're more whole.
I wouldn't say you're more whole if you cry as opposed to not crying. Some people, I'm sure, feel very strong emotions and don't cry, both men and women. But it certainly does offer relief. And I figured all of this out without being a feminist. Isn't that crazy?
You have integrity, and if you can't, your integrity has been taken away from you. As far as I know, I don't know if there's any platform for men to talk about patriarchy.
YouTube and TEDx, to name two.
So it can get quite lonely because the whole world is telling you you're wrong about treating women equally.
No, the world is telling you you're wrong for being a feminist. If there is one belief I could convince people out of, it would be the belief that feminism is synonymous with treating women equally. It isn't. Stop pretending like it is. Reality and how reality works in your head are vastly different.
The whole world is telling you you're wrong to be a man and a feminist. So it'll be nice to have other men who think similarly to you or have thought about the things you've thought of.
Sorry, dude. You might think you have it all figured out. You may think you're smart, strong, more whole, confident, but nope. It's because you're a man. Excellent work. Let's all degrade ourselves together.
Black men do not have it harder than black women. Full stop.
Well, you do generally have it harder in the justice system. White men generally have it harder than black women in the justice system as well. But sure, black men is a collective with one experience, and black women is another collective with a worse experience. Don't bring up any instances of black men having it worse than black women, because that's just an individual case. See? Do you see how you weave in and out of individualism and collectivism with the amount of grace as a giraffe on rollerblades?
Considering my personal experience with racism and considering my understanding of patriarchy, the burden that must be on a black woman's shoulders must be huge.
Can you give me an example? Please? Oh wait, you aren't basing this on reality. You're basing it on your understanding of patriarchy. My mistake. I'm so silly sometimes.
Black men, their experience with racism is the thing that, in my opinion, gives them more of a chance of understanding patriarchy. If you understand what it's like to not feel human because you're black, then you understand what it's like to not feel human because you're a woman.
How about not feeling human because you're a man and can't cry? Or did you fucking forget that in between jump cuts?
Sometimes you can't see the shoe on the other foot because the shoe was never meant to be on the other foot.
You can't even recognize when you're wearing the shoe.
When you're white, never walk around thinking, how many things can I do today and how many things can't I do today because of the color of my skin?
Can you give me an example of something that you can't do because of the color of your skin? Now, I'll assume you don't mean physically can't do, and I also assume that you'll say something like, being able to not be pulled over because you're black. Well, I can't claim that I was discriminated against by a black police officer, even if I genuinely was. I'd be laughed out of the room. I mean, that's just one example.
But you do when you're black. That's the thing that made me think, hold on, how many times do I wake up thinking, I'm a man? What can I do today because I'm a man?
Cry, you inconsistent motherfucker.
And when I thought about the reverse, well, of course, women, they must think about that. They don't know when the next person is going to use a word as offensive to them as the word nigger is offensive to me in open conversation.
I also have no idea when people are going to use any racist or sexist language around me. But yeah, I forgot, I don't get my special kind of offense, right? Since I'm a white guy, I just have your standard garden variety offense. Even if I did get massively offended in regards to these terms, you would probably see that offense as lesser than yours because skin color and sex.
And that's where I really started to understand how it's a bigger problem than racism. Today, I'm not going to walk into a cafe and I'm never going to hear someone say nigger. I'm not going to hear that. But I could walk into a cafe and hear someone say bitch or cunt.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but do we not also have these terms for men? Dick, for example. Are you going to hear those terms tossed around in open conversation? I would assume that you would, and if you would say, yes I would, then congratulations. Sexism against men is a bigger problem than racism against black people. Except it's different because...
As in a group of guys are scrolling through Instagram and saying, yeah, I'd fuck that bitch. And that's okay in our society.
Women do that too. Except they don't say, I'd fuck that bitch. They'd say something much different. Well, I suppose gay women might say that too.
When I talk about feminism, I get people arguing that's just the way it's meant to be. Because they think that, because it's so internalized, it's so insidious. Women internalize patriarchy.
Fucking called it. Internalized misogyny used unironically. You are 2 strikes away from me taking nothing else you say seriously.
And speak in the same way men do in order to survive.
In order to survive. Say bitch or I'll shoot you, woman. Say bitch! Say it!
But the master's house can't be destroyed by the master's tools.
You just implied that men are the masters of women. Strike 2.
When I use the word cunt or bitch in jest, I really am just as bad as the person who's raping people, I think.
Every time. Every damn time.
That might sound like a really outlandish statement, but that's what it is. Because, again, as a black man, someone who calls me nigger is just as bad as the person who lynched my brother down the road. They're the same person to me.
That was strike 3, and I even gave you the benefit of the doubt with strike 4. I can't take anything else you say seriously. You talk later about how some priests use Christianity to control women by seducing them through the religion, and yet fail to mention the altar boys who were victims. Basically, you compare that to some male feminists and how you can't trust them all. You're an insane person, and I need to go pick all the shards of glass out of my torso. So, have a wonderful day, everyone.